Hey, this is Jeff Batt with Learning Dojo, and I want to show you how to create a tab interaction using Bootstrap. So I'm going to go ahead and create a project here, and I'm going to be using Sublime, but you can use any text editor that you're familiar with. And I just have a new tab open, so I'm going to go ahead and create a sample project. I'm going to go to my desktop, click on New Folder, and so let's go ahead and just call this Tabs and click on Create. And then my new project is going to be called I'm just going to name it index.html and click OK. Now once I'm in here, in Sublime, you can just start typing in HTML and the code hints will pop up. I can hit enter and it will create all this code for me. If your text editor does not do that, then you'll just have to type this out as well. So I'm going to go ahead and just type in tabs here, and this is going to be my tabs interaction. And I'm going to come into my body, and this is where my content will be. So let's just create a comment that says content. And now let's come back up to my head tab. I need to link to the Bootstrap code in order to be able to use this functionality, and you can either download the code and then import it in, or you can go ahead and link to this from the CDN. Now I already have this pulled up, so I'm going to go ahead and just copy this right here and paste that. And there's a couple things that I'm linking to. So first of all, I'm linking to the style sheet on Bootstrap, so if you want to copy this over, you can. And so that's copying so I can use the styling of the Bootstrap language or the Bootstrap framework. The next thing I'm doing is I'm linking to the jQuery framework as well. And so that's linking to the CDN for jQuery. And the last one is the Bootstrap functionality, which is the JavaScript. So we have those three things linked. And then all we need to do is actually create the content. So I'm going to come in here, and the first thing I want to do is I want to create the navigation that's going to show up on top. Let's go ahead and just hide this real quick, and I'm going to open up the tabs folder that I created, and I'm going to double click on the HTML file. Right now I don't have any HTML in there, but I want to keep that up so when I come back to it, I can just hit refresh and see that content. So let's go ahead and open up Sublime, and I'm going to create the buttons, the tabs that are going to show up on top. So let's go ahead and just start creating a div tag here. And well, let's put this inside of a container. So I'm going to come back. The first thing is going to be a container. This is a Bootstrap container that adds some padding on the left and the right, and my tab interaction is going to be inside of that container. So that's step number one. So step number two is to go ahead and create the navigation. We're going to create the navigation by creating an unordered list. And we're going to have 3 items inside the navigation. So I like to create my list items before I add the classes. So I'm going to go ahead and create 3 of those. And I could just copy and paste if I wanted to. But Bootstrap is all about assigning the right classes in order for your functionality, for your items to automatically adapt to the style. So I'm going to go ahead and just add a class inside of my unordered list. And that class is, first of all, it's going to be a nav. This is going to be a nav options, and this will automatically say, okay, anything inside of this unordered list is going to be part of the navigation. But we're going to specify this with the nav-tabs. This item is going to be the tabs style, and so now it knows anything in the list item is going to have that tab style. So the next thing I want to do is I want to assign a class to the first item, and that class is going to be active. This means that the first item is going to be active. The second item is not going to be active until the user actually clicks on it. If you want to assign the second item active, you can as well, but the default one, as soon as they come to this page, is the first one to let them know that they're on this first tab. All right, so now inside of that list item, what we want to do is add a link. So I'm going to go ahead and add an anchor link. And inside of the href, we're actually going to assign this to tab 1. That means I'm going to have some content somewhere named tab 1, and this is how I link it to open up tab 1. But I also need to do one other thing inside of Bootstrap here. I also need to add a data toggle equals, and then in quotes, I need to say tab. We're defining this to be a link to a tab, because typically in the navigation it'll link to a different page because you're creating like a website navigation. But in this case, we're going to link to the same, or we're not linking to another page, but we're going to link to different content in that page, and that's the way that you identify that. So I'm going to go ahead and just name this one tab 1. And then we're going to copy this anchor link so we don't have to duplicate it. And we're going to go ahead and paste that inside of the next 2 links there. So I'm going to change the tab here to be tab 2 and then tab 3. I need to change the href as well to tab 2 and then tab 3. And then we now have our navigation. So let's go ahead and create some content though. So we have the navigation up on top. Let's actually preview that. And you can see there's our navigation. Tab 1, tab 2, tab 3. But we don't have any content here, so we need to create that content. I'm going to come in and create a new div tag. And I like to comment my different items so we can say, so I can clearly define when one ends and when one starts. So I'm going to say, go ahead and say tab nav. And then if I hit in Sublime, I can hit command \, and that will create a comment for me. So now I'm going to say this one is going to be tab 1, and now I can create the div tag for tab 1. So inside of tab 1, I'm going to create a class. First of all, actually we need to have a whole wrapper around all of our tabs. So I'm going to say tabs content. And so now in this div tag, I'm going to go ahead and say tab-content. And inside of this div tag, it's going to contain all the content for all 3 tabs. So now I can go ahead and make another comment saying tab 1 and add the content for tab 1. So, but it needs to be wrapped up. This is key right here. It needs to be wrapped up inside of the tab content. So let's go ahead and create a div tag. And in that div tag, I'm going to name this one here. I'm going to give this an ID. And I'm going to call this one tab 1 because we've associated this ID right here, this href, to go to hashtag, which is an ID, and then tab 1, and then it will jump to whatever this content is. So I also need to give it a class, and that class is going to be tab-pane because this is going to be a pane area. And if I want this to animate, I can say, okay, go ahead and fade in, and then this is the first one, so this is going to be the active one at the very beginning. I don't have to do that with every single tab. I only need to do that with the first one. So before I start creating some content, I'm going to go ahead and copy this and paste it 2 different times. So I can get rid of the in and active on the second and third one because not all of them are going to be active right away. And then I can change this to tab 2 and change the last one to tab 3. I'm going to go ahead and add a comment at the top there so I can separate each of them. Again, that's optional, but it helps me separate the content so I can clearly define what is in what section. And now from here, it's pretty much you can add any HTML inside of here. So I can say, okay, let's add an H2, and this is going to be tab 1. And then in the paragraph, we're going to go ahead and say, just add some lorem ipsum here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and copy this content inside of tab 2, change it to tab 2 here, and tab 2 inside of the text, and do the same thing with tab 3. All right, so we save this. Now let's go ahead and preview it. So I'm going to hit refresh, and you can see there's my tab 1. This didn't quite transfer over on the lorem ipsum. So I may need to just change that, delete it. I think an extra character got added there. But I'm going to hit tab 2 and tab 3. So you can see it automatically handles the functionality that it shows the text associated with tab 2 when tab 2 is actually selected. It does the same thing here with tab 3. Now if I wanted to adjust the style of the tabs, I can go ahead and create my own CSS, come in here, go into inspect element, find different things where I can adjust the background color, adjust the lines however I needed to, maybe add some lines around the content. So it's really up to you. It's pretty flexible as far as what you can do from there, but that's how you at least create the basic functionality of a tab interaction using Bootstrap.